Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Kim Hansen with us today. He's a CEO at Cake. He's helping 1 million entrepreneur build a better future for all of us. He's in Mountain View, California. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. And Kim, I'm glad to have you on. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's exciting. As it kind of says there in the title, I have a passion to help startup teams and entrepreneurs and founders. And because of that, I've built Cake. I'm the CEO and co-founder at that. That's basically a platform that helps build a winning culture for startup founders and their team members with equity. So we have an underlying cap table platform where it is extremely easy to set up an option plan for your employees and give them ownership in your startup and just drive that growth. So yeah, we kind of launched in Australia and have expanded worldwide and are now growing really fast in the US. Yeah, very happy and grateful to be here and support startup teams. That's the best thing in the world to do.
Right. Yeah, it's not your first company, right? I believe you created at least 10 on reading your LinkedIn here. So tell me a bit more about your background, your story, how you became a founder yourself.
Yeah, I think that maybe it was meant to be, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But I think I'm more like an introvert. I used to love to program since I was a little kid. And before the internet was there, I was getting books from the library about basic and programming and all of that. And I was fortunate to get access to Commodore Vic 20 in the very early days and just hack away. And eventually I could get to the machine language and just push the computer of what it was possible to do at the times. And so I always had like a desire to do that. And my introvertness probably could have put me in a closed room and just do that. But ultimately, I found that I could scale much more by having amazing people around me. And it's way more fun to do these things with a team. So yeah, in regards to other companies, I've built quite a few companies, but a lot of them are just experiments that didn't work out, and some of them have gone really quite well. I guess one of them is a company called Impossible, where we help like the big companies in the world with their products, Google, Samsung, Roche, BMW, Intel, and I really learned more than the programming and the backend and the software that the user experience is extremely important. So we were figuring that out and trying to blend that with the new technology that often adds a lot more friction, where I think often, if it's invisible and you just get the power from it, that's really good uses of it. So that's kind of like the journey. Then I started a few things, and I knew more and more that I wanted to be fully in the entrepreneurship world instead of running multiple things at the same time. So I was kind of running multiple companies at the same time. And now I think I'm very, very focused on Cake and just all that it entails and really helping as many people as I can.
You mentioned Impossible Labs here. I also see Bravino, Flow, yeah, and a bunch of other companies. Which one was your biggest victory and which one was your biggest failure?
Hmm, interesting question. I think Cake is the biggest victory so far. I think it's still early in the days compared to Impossible Labs, which was probably the second biggest. Each have, life is a journey, and so we learn along the way. And so, we're always building on top of those learnings. So I think, at building a startup that actually works, getting past that first million annual recurring revenue, and growing from there, and making a team that is just dedicated to the mission is a huge achievement. To go up against big competitors uh, you know and still have a better product that is easier to use, that the customers love more, opening new markets on a tiny budget, I think that's a huge achievement. I'm very proud of that. The biggest success so far. So who knows where that's going to go? I think it will only grow. The worst thing, I think that was more like a passion product that I kind of started to do, which was called Stoked. And I was building it for myself, not really listening to the customers enough, and like definitely too much tech first and what I wanted instead of just what works for these first 100 customers. The funny thing is that once I kind of left that project, someone else took the name and built the idea, and it's now running in Portugal. When I was living there at the time, so that's really cool. I started something and someone thought it was a good idea and actually made it work. I actually feel really happy about that, even though I had nothing to do with that. They just took the name and the idea and actually made it work. So that's awesome.
And how did you get in equity? I guess you had some of these cap tables yourself, running all these previous startups. Like, what problems did you face back then that led to Cake?
Yeah, really good question. So in Impossible, for example, I thought we should set up an ESOP plan, and it was just so difficult. I wasn't the CEO at the time. I was the CTO, and I managed to get ownership because I came in early and I was good at negotiating and saw the value of that. And later that became valuable because I managed to exit that. But I wanted the first hires that I had around me, and that I think they did the same effort as me. Why would they not get ownership? And it was just over 2 years I tried, and I couldn't get them convinced. It was too complex, it was too too expensive, it was too painful, and it was really frustrating. And I was just, this is wrong. And then later also just I couldn't buy stocks because I wasn't a sophisticated investor at the time, but I could buy all this Bitcoin stuff. Like, why can you do that but not that? So I felt it was such a gated world. So I wanted to make this a lot easier. And I've always been passionate about a team and making sure everybody is rewarded in that team. So I think it became natural that, well, equity is a good thing to solve. There's a lot more to solve, but that's a good starting point.
Right. And tell me about Cake itself, all its features. Which one are the dominant ones? And which one do you have on the roadmap here?
Yeah, I think what I'm most proud of is probably you can set up an ESOP plan, so options for your team in just one click with standard contracts. You can import any type of contracts that various lawyers have put together, and our platform can automatically pick out the rules from that, and then you have all the vesting and all this stuff very nicely displayed for both. There's an employee portal called My Cake, and then the kind of founders and the advisors and like lawyers and stuff can use the kind of backend to make it set up correctly and all that. So we have this concept of making everything one click and reducing the friction. That was inspired by Amazon. You can buy stuff with one click. So it needs to be much simpler, more than reducing the friction. We really need to help with the transparency on what this is, because this is supposed to drive motivation and really help you achieve your goals as a team. But often, it's some 50-page contract that nobody understands, and in the end, you don't get any value from it. So I think there's a lot of education, there's a lot of support, education for the employees. So we have all these little cards that pop up. We have these little mini modeling tools you can play with inside the MyCake app. There's a direct communication, so whenever you're getting vesting, you can send kudos back to the founders, and so really building on that relationship, and also helping the founders explain easier what this equity is, what it's worth, finding that balance between it. Sometimes it's a lottery ticket, sometimes it's over promising, and how do you find that balance to make sure we are in this together, you have ownership. If we achieve these things, these are possible outcomes, and then making that more and more likely together to make that happen. Yeah.
Right. And the pricing, how do you go with that? I see it starts at $80 a month. Do people usually churn after some time if they just raised a cap table or they made their numbers clear, or do they stay for a while?
No, it's we have a freemium, a starter, and a growth. So it's really scaling with what's affordable for startups. Early startups, you don't have any money, so we really need to help them. So it's a very kind of cheap product to get started with and get value from right away, and then it scales with you. Sorry, the question was.
Like the pricing itself and the churn.
The churn.
First,
Yeah,
how do
so
you decide about the pricing? And second, how do you mitigate churn in your niche?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the key things with Cake that differentiate us from our competitors is that we are very much product-led growth. So, while other platforms are typically built on top of lawyers and like a SaaS on top of that, we have 80% of our US customers are self-serving on the platform. They can onboard themselves. They can get started using the platform right away. And yes, often there is an urgency just after a round or something because you have to set up an option pool. But ultimately, along the way, it's that you get value from it using it every single day. So the great thing about investing in an option pool is that you have this ongoing earning method that is happening. So that creates that engagement from the employees and the engagement between founders and employees. We're not here to take valuable time away. It's the opposite. But really, drive that ongoing value. It's back to if you just sign a paper, 50-page contracts and throw it in a drawer, it's never going to give you any value. So how do you create the engagement? We are building this winning culture. You can see you're earning more. The value of the company is going up. Let's do this together, kind of thing. So that's what we build it around. How we reduce churn, it's really making sure that the customers, as soon as possible, when they're touching the platform, they're getting value from it, and then seeing how they can use it very easily. So they get that engagement. They know that if I have to look up something, it's just one click on Cake. If I have to give an option letter, get that set up, it's one click on Cake. So yeah, it's really creating that good experience.
Right. And GTM wise, you target multiple segments: CEOs, CFOs, founders, of course, legal ops, human resource. Which one is the priority here? And what does your go-to-market motion looks for each?
Yeah, really good questions. And it's definitely one of the challenges with what we're doing. Not only is equity complicated, but you have all these personas, different user profiles that are ultimately also going to help you achieve value out of the equity. It's not just the founder, it's the founder and the teams, and it's the advisors, and it's the law firms, and all of these that are collaborating together. So we have lots of personas, and not only that, a startup journey. The founders change a lot during the time and maturity, whether they're experienced founders or first-time founders at the beginning. That's a lot to learn in this. So the user experience needs to be extremely simple. Then later stage, they need the power features. So balancing that is extremely complicated. So yeah, ultimately from the highest level, I'd say we're very kind of community-led. It's kind of how we won in Australia, and it's how we're winning globally. Building great partnerships with law firms and accelerators and VCs, and great brands, founders of great customers that together want to have a better experience, basically a more modern platform, creating less dependency on lawyers for standard things and accountants, all of that. You should be able to do that yourself. You shouldn't be scared about from that, and you should be able to move fast with these things in a trusted way. So ultimately, it's we build a lot of content. We can talk about how I'm not a marketing expert at all, but definitely, there's a lot of things that are changing now with all the introductions of LLMs and all of that. But ultimately, I think it's building quality content, and of course, finding your audience, understanding them really, really well. We use a lot of data to do that. So we have really good insights. So we can kind of respond really fast to what's the demand. We're extremely agile as a smaller team, and with these tools we have, and when you have 20x engineers and really smart people, you don't need huge teams. It actually slows you down. We can build extremely fast, so we can learn, experiment, and deliver to the changing market. So that helps a lot in the go-to-market motion as well. A little bit more on that, of course, with something like equity, it's important that the trust is really high. Because we are holding something valuable to the team, and we're typically there's investors and lawyers and all of them involved. It needs to be compliant, all of that. So it's really, really important that we build that trust in the community while we build that community, and of course also show, hey, this is something new. It is better. It's easier, but it's very trustworthy.
And what AI tools do you use internally to deploy faster? And What AI features are you planning or already have in Cake?
Yeah, good question. I think try and avoid that it's like we have an AI first mentality. Now we need to understand we always have a customer first. What is the problem we're trying to solve? Now, AI brings new types of capabilities. So it's really learning that really fast. What are these capabilities when we're solving this problem? Typically choosing simple things to make sure that we can reduce the time it takes to, for example, onboard a customer, and using tools for that. So a lot of the kind of understanding specifically what the customer needs, that's something we can use LLMs to, and then directing them to the solution faster. What types of tools we use? I mean, we use a lot of stuff, but we have an aggregation of all our data from all sources into a platform where we can run both machine learning and LLMs on top of that. So LLMs is a bit more for insights in customer data and text, and machine learning is more predictable patterns and all of that. We also automate the uploading of contracts, so you can both generate legal contracts on our platform that follows the standards, but you can also just import your own contracts. So that from contract to the backend engine, or from the backend engine to the contract, we use lots of AI tools for that.
Tell me about Free Street. Do you still run that one? And if so, what does it look a day in your life? Must be pretty busy.
Yeah, I'm less on that. I think I'm more an advisor they call on once in a while. Yeah, I think that was more in the idea that trading has to be more transparent and better. And I met an exceptional guy called Matthias Kornebeck, who was one of the early guys in Ethereum. He was the COO there, did that first ICO with them. He came to Portugal when I was there at the time, and I was super keen to understand and learn about crypto and Bitcoin, and more from a I would say less than the crypto and more the functionality and the idea of kind of like an internet computer and decentralized world and all of those things. So I was running the Bitcoin community in Portugal, and so he came there and he was from Ethereum and stuff. So we started building something together. He had ideas for a better world as well, and we built a Revino platform on top of Ethereum.
And yeah, day in your life, at what time do you wake up? What habits do you nurture to be a better founder, CEO?
Mm, yeah, I typically get up at 6:30 or something. I stopped using an alarm clock a long time ago, unless I have to get up at 5:30. Now I just want to make sure that I get up, but also I don't have to use an alarm, so that's great. And yeah, typical day, I do invest a lot in my health. I think it's my responsibility as to be the best human I can. So the first thing is the oxygen mask. You got to take really good care of your health. So I will often train in the morning and meditate, jump in the ocean if I can, either surf or go for a swim. In the middle of the day, I'll often do kind of recovery stuff. So cold pool, warm pool, magnesium, cryotherapy, all this stuff. And yeah, I try and live extremely optimized with my life. So investing into my health, making sure I'm with my family, and doing something really meaningful. And I'm also extremely passionate about being in nature, which I also think contributes to me staying balanced and not being flooded with information overload and too much technology. So I love to go mountain biking and surfing and windsurfing and pickleball, lots of stuff. So I'm quite active as a person, I think, but it helps me stay grounded, and it also helps me. I think when you constrain resources, it forces you to think a bit more smart. It's very easy to lose unlimited time and energy on things that are not effective. They don't drive outcomes. Whether that outcome is actually being present in the moment, or whether that is to hit some growth targets. Yeah, I think constraints can be fantastic. Of course, having a passion and being quite good at setting boundaries and just saying, I'm going to start Monday morning always with training, no matter what. Like, it just has to happen. That's how I win that day. It's how I win the week. It's how I win the month. And it's how I take care of myself and everyone around me. So yeah, I can talk about that for hours, but that's a bit about me.
Yeah, I like that. You keep mentioning that, yeah, your company is constrained, quote unquote. It's smaller. Do you think that's how the companies of the future will look like? Very few employees, more AI agents, maybe some capital injection. What does the company of the future look like in the AI age?
Mm, good question, really good question, and I think about it a lot. I don't have the answers, but what I'm seeing now definitely is that you need less people for, especially like SaaS things. What I'm seeing also is that we do that at Cake, and for myself, I can just build stuff that before I was needing to pay a subscription on a typical SaaS platform. So that's an incredible freedom that is happening. I think if we think a little bit more crazy, a lot of the domains you needed to understand better, maybe you need to understand them a little bit less now to be able to still operate in them. So, for example, me as a CEO and founder, I jump around in different contexts, and I think I have enough understanding of the different domains from just being every day experimenting and learning. But now I can leverage LLMs to bring me faster research in different areas and still navigate what's right and what's wrong for Cake, more than what's right and wrong for the world. That who knows that. So I yeah, I think definitely there's no doubt that we're going to have the possibilities of building things with a lot less people, a lot less resources, a lot less money than before was needed. But you do something more deep tech or something that takes much more research before you can start monetizing it. It's still going to need money a lot of times. So it really depends on what you're trying to solve. I think now in the SaaS world and building apps and all of that, that's definitely changing. Being able to serve customers, we see a lot of potential for Cake. I think everyone becomes less the expertise or experience and the job title, and more a knowledge worker that really can spend more time understanding the customer and then translating that into value faster, to like through these new tools. So how that so for SaaS, yeah, I think you can build a lot of SaaS with a lot less people and money. Other things are still going to need money. With the research, you can accelerate in many fronts. I also think we have to be careful because yeah, this is a new tool, and if we stop learning, we are not going to make the right decisions with this, right? So it's easy to just shortcut everything and say, oh, this is the right answer. This is a good text, so we're actually not using it in a good way. I don't think anyone really knows what that looks like, but my thoughts around that right now is that we want to try and free ourselves up to do more of the deep thinking, more creative thinking. So some of the rules I have on myself and try and like promote inside Cake is when we use these tools to do more of decision making and thinking, then first make your own draft, and then you compare it with the research, not the other way around, because we will just naturally shortcut, and then we are often not seeing that we are not really engaging our brain enough on the things that really matter. So being more human, building tech to make us more human is very essential to me, and I think it's important for the world.
And that draft being the prompt, right? Like the draft is the actual prompt. It's what you have in your brain fed to a machine, trying to understand that machine and getting the research back, or the response back. Do you also leverage deep research nowadays a lot to brighten your brain in some fields that you don't have a clue about?
Yeah, so I think prompt is only the part of it, and it's great. Like the prompt itself forces us to think about how to communicate this problem or this thing we want to do to an LLM. So, but it's not enough. I think we still need to expand how we think about that problem without the LLMs. So I think the draft is twofolded. It's not just enough to create the prompt itself. I don't know. What was the second question? That's a really important
Deep
point.
research. Yeah, I tend to leverage deep research a lot. I don't even read books nowadays. I just quiz GPT on what's directly of interest to me, which is normally capitalistically related, right? And
Yeah,
then I get information back, and then I can dive deeper by asking question on that quote unquote scientific research.
yeah, absolutely. It's just phenomenal deep research. Like it's so impressive. Like a lot of this AI stuff with LLMs, at least, is extremely impressive. And one of them is that you can do a deep research and get either visual interface back, where you can test things, or really kind of deep insights on a subject that is obviously generated from the mashup of all this content that is online, right? But that's also kind of like a status quo. So I think it shouldn't stop there. I think the human brain needs to be, connecting more of that than just what happens there, if that makes sense. So if we look at learning, what like I love some of the kind of stuff from Adam Grant in how you learn. There's a great book called Hidden Potential that talks about how you kind of learn day to day. So I think those fundamental principles of learning are still true independent of these tools. So yes, we can get, some specific niche, maybe research, and get that presented in a way that works for us. I think that's really, really powerful. But how we learn is still engaging the brain more. So before, or how we use that, I think is important. If we're just spending most of our time reading that research, there's some work in the prompting. It's not enough. I think it's how you use that to create value from it. What is it you're going to do? Just feeding more information into your head, but what is the outcome? How are you going to measure that? I think that's really where it's important that we're aware. My progress in learning is measuring this. I can make better decisions around equity or something like that from that. And you measure that, you focus on that. Great. Now I'm drafting this, I'm thinking about it, and I'm getting this research. That is making me this decision higher quality and maybe sometimes faster.
Love it, Kim. Well, thanks for being on today. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
At cakeequity.com and on LinkedIn.
So that was Kim and Charles for another founder